So good afternoon. Once again, my name is Professor McDonald, and this is part of our 2021 Winter Honors Week presentations. Today, we have two roundtable presenters, both of whom are not just Monroe College Honors students, but they were accepted into the Northeast Regional Honors Council Conference, which takes place next weekend on April 10th and April 11th, 2021. The two students who are doing kind of this dress rehearsal this evening are Xarielle Blanchette and Jellissa Lacon, and they are doing a roundtable format, which means it's somewhat interactive. So if you are here with us tonight, we'd appreciate if you could interact when they ask you to. That might mean raising your hand and talking a little bit, or using the chat, or a little bit of both. So I'm going to turn it over to our first very capable and seasoned presenter, Xarielle.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Like Professor McDonald said, my name is Xarielle Blanchette, and I recently concluded my bachelor's degree at Monroe. So yes, I am a seasoned honors student. I studied business management with a minor in marketing, just so you know a bit about me and how I got to choosing this topic, because I am very passionate about consumer behavior and all things marketing. So let's go. Professor McDonald, I'm trying to, oh, okay. I was trying, all right. So the introduction and purpose. Before the rise of the internet and the social media, companies were more easily able to exploit their consumers. Okay. Today, more successful brands work with consumers and seek their input. This practice, however, also comes with certain consequences. Perhaps the ideal business-consumer relationship is one where there is a balance of power. The relationship between brands and consumers is an important one. I am of the belief that the relationship should be a symbiotic one, meaning it is mutually beneficial for both parties. However, this is always not the case. This research is to explore ways in which businesses and consumers can collaborate with each other to achieve the goals of both parties, so there is a balance between both entities. So the way in which this presentation will go, it will be sectioned off into three parts. Part one, we'll look at the power of cooperations. Part two, we'll look at the power of consumers. Part three, we'll look at how to balance the power between both entities. And then at the end, we'll have a fun activity for you guys. Let's get into it. So part one, the power of corporations. How companies abuse their power. One, they can abuse their power through monopolies. Monopolies allow for companies to take advantage of consumers, especially through unethical pricing. They can also abuse their power through their terms of service agreements. I am sure that most of us do not read those terms of service agreements, and this allows companies to take advantage of us by sneaking in information into those terms of service agreements. Number three, misleading advertising. And we will now look at a case study that talks more about misleading advertising. So Naked Juice, I'm not sure if any of you are aware of this brand, but the company was served a lawsuit for using misleading phrasing on their packages. The company defended its packaging, but acknowledged that some of its products contain synthetic vitamins. The claim said that they use phrases like 100 fruit juice, all natural, non-GMO. However, their products were made with genetically altered soy and synthetic vitamins. They claim that all natural referred to the fruits that they use and not the product itself. The company defended its packaging, but acknowledged that some of its products contain synthetic vitamins, like I said. In the end, the company agreed to discontinue with its original packaging, and they adjusted the phrasing on their packaging, on their new packaging. So part 2, the power of consumers. And I know this year's conference theme looks at infrequently asked questions. And I know one thing we tend to always look at the power of companies, but we don't often look at how consumers may abuse their power. So here are some ways that consumers may abuse their power. People support brands that share the same beliefs as them. And with this, they can abuse their power in the fact that we know cancel culture is very popular now. And it's easy for anyone to go on social media and basically call for the cancellation of a company, and because they don't believe in the same thing as them. So that's one way in which consumers can abuse their power. The customer is king belief. This is very popular in the hotel industry as well, where the hotels try to do as much as they can to please the customers, and the consumers, knowing this, they often take advantage of those companies. For example, you go to a hotel or an Airbnb, and you're completely disrespectful, knowing that the company is going to try its best to still please you, and that's taking advantage of the company. Return policies is another way in which consumers abuse their power, and we'll talk more about that a little further into the presentation. Blog pages and reviews allow customers to hurt companies' reputation, and I spoke a little bit about that earlier as well as it relates to cancel culture. And we'll now look at a case study. I'm not sure if any of you remember when there was this call for cancellation of Gucci over their black face sweater. As you can see, there's an image of the sweater earlier in 2019. Yes, it's amazing. Many celebrities decided to boycott the fashion brand Gucci because of the sweater, as they felt it evoked racist feelings, and a lot of people use social media to convince thousands of people around the world to boycott the fashion brand. Eventually, they decided to pull the sweater from the racks, which I think was the best decision they could do. Okay, now part 3, finding balance of power. One way in which you could find a balance of power is through government protection of consumers. Governments often put in place several things to protect consumers through consumer protection laws, and this is one way you could seek a balance of power between both entities. Consumers buying shares is also a good way to seek a balance of both powers, because if the consumer has a vested interest in the company, they wouldn't do anything to hurt the company. And consumers becoming better informed and companies not withholding information. Like I said, companies tend to sneak in information into their terms of service agreements. So if you as the consumer are seeking information and doing all that you can to stay informed, there's no way the company could mislead you. And companies on their end should not withhold information from the consumers. Lastly, collaboration is a big way you can find a balance of power. In the age of social media, a lot of companies are reaching out to different social media influencers to work with them, get their input, and you could also do this through surveys, as company surveys. Collaboration is one of the best ways to find a balance of power, in my opinion. All right, so we'll now look at another case study. Popeyes, they reintroduced their chicken sandwich to their menu a few years ago. The restaurant food chain, Popeyes, decided to reintroduce their chicken sandwich, and this created a huge buzz on social media. The word of mouth promotion created a buzz about their chicken sandwich, and it drove a lot of persons to go to Popeyes to try their chicken sandwich. This was an example of a balance of power, in my opinion, as the Popeyes listened to the consumers and acted based on what the consumers wanted. All right, we'll now open it up for questions and answers, but first we'll have a quick activity for you to engage with me. We're going to call it Matchmaker. First, you're going to determine if the following scenarios result in a balanced relationship. Then we will discuss why the participants believe the group scenarios result in the ideal relationship or not. Thank you. So, scenario 1. Company A allows its customers to return products free of charge if not satisfied. After wearing a dress to a party, Ashley realized that she no longer likes the dress, how the dress looks on her. So the next day, she returned the dress to the store to get her money back. Do you guys think this is the balance of power or not? This is my time to hear from you. Yes, Professor McDonald?
Well, I think that even if it's the store's policy, I don't think that that's right on the side of the consumer to kind of wear it, to go out with it, to use it and then to return it. I think if there was damage to the dress, I think if there was something that broke on it, like on the first wear, that gives grounds to go back and get her money and return it. But if it's just a case of, kind of, buyer remorse, and you've already worn it, then I think that that's wrong on the consumer's part. And I think it's an abuse of the policy that the store extends customers.
Mm-hmm. Jellissa, are you saying that it is not an abuse of power or it is a balance of power? Which one?
No, I also agree that it's an abuse of power. I agree with everything Professor McDonald said. I feel like if you try it on before you go into the party and you're like, oh, okay, I don't like this, then okay, take it off for something else. When you get back, you can return it. But if you already went outside with it, went and like got sweaty in it and all of that, like, nah, bugging.
So yes, I agree with both of you that it is an abuse of power, especially considering the fact that if you return something, the companies aren't really making money from those returned goods. They either discard of them or they have to sell them at a lower cost. So yes, it's an abuse of power. So we will now go on to the second scenario. Company B has recently come under scrutiny on social media as consumers feel the brand is based on a racial stereotype. Consumers are calling for a boycott of the brand. Company B changes the brand name and packaging. However, consumers are still not satisfied with the rebrand. Do you think this is a balance of power, an abuse of power? What are your thoughts? Yes, Jellissa?
I feel like they shouldn't just change the branding and packaging. Like there should be some kind of like shown remorse and like steps like addressing like how they're wrong, showing that they acknowledge like why they're wrong, how they can do better, and then continue to take those steps in the future of being more racially aware and things like that.
Anyone else?
I mean, I'll chime in, and then, if anyone else who's still here would like to say something. I mean, I think that, a company can, beyond doing that, I think rebranding and repackaging, while it seems simple, is a big to do sometimes for companies, in terms of making that shift. It's about figuring out the artwork and everything else, and then still working with vendors to transition old product out to get the new product on the shelves. So I think that there's a balancing act that the company has to do there. I do agree with Jellissa that there could be more public outreach, I think is kind of what she's getting at, and more maybe working within the community and philanthropy, if you will, depending on what the circumstances are. So yeah, that's what I would chime in.
Yes, I agree as well. Well, for this scenario, I feel like it was a bit difficult to decide whether there was an abuse of power or not, but I agree the company should take some more further steps into fixing the problem. Next slide. Okay, so the second scenario was inspired by the oops. Okay. Slow. So the second scenario was inspired by the recent change of the Aunt Jemima packaging and brand name to the Pearl Milling Company. Any thoughts on this? Let's discuss.
How many people have, well, and again, so Xarielle, I'm just gonna give you a pro tip here while we're here. If you've heard of this, if you've heard of this rebrand, because that's what Xarielle's question was about, you can raise your hand or put it in the chat. Have you heard of the rebrand of Aunt Jemima? Okay, so M says yes. All right. Okay, all right. So yeses. Okay. So what do you guys, so this is the question with this company, right? What do you think about this rebrand?
Yes, Jellissa?
I think that this was like a genuine thing where they realized that it was rooted in racism and wanted to actually try to like do something positive. So I feel like they had good intentions behind this. I was here for it. Cause I know some people were like, no, don't get rid of Aunt Jemima, but like I'm here for like Pearl Milling Company as something that doesn't have a negative connotation towards it. I feel like even if Aunt Jemima is something that you grew up around, it's still rooted in something, right? There's still like an underlying message behind it that you're engaging in. So I feel like Pearl Milling Company is like a fresh start kind of thing, and I'm for it.
So I agree. I felt that the rebranding was a good thing. It was good for them to listen to their consumers, and that's a way of collaboration. However, some consumers were still unsatisfied, and in this world, you can't please everyone, but you just have to try your best. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Continue to be safe and healthy.
Thank you so much, Xarielle. You did a great job with your presentation. So let me see some hands clapping in the chat, please. There we go. I think the ending was very interactive with the case studies. And, again, I think that you're also going to find, when you do it live, that you'll get different responses to your scenarios and to your questions, and probably different commentary. But I want to thank Jellissa for participating, because I think that gives, it just gives you a feeling for that interactivity. So good job. All right, so I want to welcome those folks who have just joined in. We have one more presentation for you today. Last but certainly not least, we have one of our honors roundtable presenters who will also be working for the NRHC conference. So I'm just pulling up her slides. I'm just looking for the right file. There it is. Okay. So Jellissa, you'll be able to navigate with the button at the bottom, you know, or the arrow at the bottom to move through your presentation. So I'm going to pass it right over to you. And again, when Jellissa asks if you guys can be engaged, that would be awesome, since that'll simulate what the conference experience is like. So right over to you, Jellissa.
Thank you, Professor McDonald. Good afternoon, everybody. My presentation is on finding solutions to the impossible problem of food apartheid. Hi, everybody. My name is Jellissa. I'm currently a freshman at Monroe College, and I'm very passionate about food discrimination, which is why I am here today. Please utilize the chat or raise your hand if you have heard of any of the following. Has anybody heard of food apartheid? And if not, feel free to even write that in the chat. No, it's okay, because we're gonna cover all of this. Okay. I see Professor Flores still has. That's great. Has anyone heard of a food desert? Okay, I see more people have heard of food deserts. That's good, that's good. Has anybody heard of food sovereignty? Yes, okay, I see a yes. Some no's, okay. That's completely okay, because we're gonna cover all of this in the upcoming slides. So today, by the end of my roundtable discussion, we're going to know what food apartheid is. We're going to cover food sovereignty. We're going to see the different forms of food apartheid and what these things look like. We're going to know who's affected by food deserts and the impacts of food deserts and why it's important that we come up with solutions. So food apartheid looks at the whole food system in its entirety, taking into account income, race, geographical location, and it also looks at how social and racial inequalities make accessing fresh and healthy food difficult in low-income areas. This all starts with farming inequality and its roots, which is kind of embedded in theft and slavery. What this means is when European colonizers came over to this land, they forcibly took the land and a lot of vegetables and produce from Native Americans. And leading into today, farm subsidies mainly go to white farmers. Recently, a bunch of Black farmers had to file a lawsuit against the government because of this type of discrimination. Approximately 98% of the farmable land in America is owned by white farmers. And again, this leads to capitalism. These white farmers get to decide where this food goes, and so on and so on. What is a food desert? Food deserts are areas with limited access to affordable and nutritious food. So some people may think that a food desert means that there's no food available. That isn't true. It's really about how far the food is, how affordable it is, because remember, these are low-income communities that are impacted by this, and how nutritious the food is. This considers the type and quality of the food available. So while there may be grocery stores, the type of food in there, like depending on its quality, the type of food available, maybe a lot of vegetables aren't available, or maybe the quality is low, maybe a lot of food expires within like a few days, things like that. So food deserts consider accessibility to these foods through size and proximity of these food stores. Welcome to Far Rockaway, a federally labeled food desert. Who lives in Far Rockaway? It's mostly made up of Black individuals and Latino individuals. Far Rockaway is predominantly Black, so 47.1% of the population is Black, and then 25.2% of the population contains Latino individuals. So I have a little thing for everybody, true or false. Fast food contributes to food deserts. Please drop yes or no in the comments. Yeah. And I'll give you guys a minute to kind of get your answers in the chat. True. I see some trues. Okay. Okay. Is that it? Anybody else want to comment? Take a guess. Give like 30 more seconds. All right. Okay. So it is true. Food deserts contain a vast amount of fast food chains selling cheap meat and dairy-based food, but they are high in fat, salt, and sugar. A lot of people think that because these low-income communities are populated with like these different fast food chains that is a source of food. But remember, food deserts determine like the quality of the food and what's being offered. So people can't survive off fast food day in and day out, day after day. The food and drinks available in Far Rockaway are liquor stores, a ton of fast food. So McDonald's, Popeyes, Dunkin' Donuts. We have some Chinese stores, a lot of delis and bodegas, and 2 small poor quality grocery stores. So again, we do have access to grocery stores, but the quality in there is not good. There's not a lot of access to certain things. You may not find as many ingredients as you would in a populated, higher income community. And so there's also no big one-stop supermarket. Please comment in the chat or unmute yourself for this section. What fast food exists in your neighborhood or around your school? That's our first question. So like for me, I'm from Far Rockaway. We have Popeyes, McDonald's, KFC. It's just like in and out of fast food. So I would like to know what fast food exists in your neighborhood or around your school. I got you, Xarielle. Go ahead.
So I currently live in Bronx, and there are a lot of fast food places. There's Popeyes, Dunkin' Donuts, Domino's Pizza. Everything you could think of is just there.
Thank you for sharing. So I see Subway, Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, Taco Bell, DQ, Chinese food stores, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Chicken Spot, Chinese food, Popeyes, Checkers. Ooh, I love Checkers. A crab shop. You're from Brooklyn? Okay, I'm close to there. I'm in 30 minutes. McDonald's is less than a mile away from my home. Burger King, Wendy's, Domino's, and Chinese food. A lot of the similar things. Do you guys think that you live in a food desert? Yes. Okay. Yes. No. Okay. No. That's good. That's good. Okay. So for those who do think that they live in a food desert, prior to this slide and the prior slides, did you feel like you live in a food desert? Did you know that you live in a food desert? Or is this something new to you? And you can feel free to unmute. You can feel free to comment in the chat. No, it is new to me. Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good. I'm happy that I'm giving some information. You have enlightened me on this subject. Thank you. I'm proud to. So what does this mean? Inhabitants who do live in food deserts do not have consistent access to healthy foods. This can lead to food insecurity, not knowing where your next meal is coming from. Because remember, we cannot rely on these fast food chains. We cannot rely on bodegas and corner stores. We definitely cannot rely on liquor stores. So it can create some kind of food insecurity in certain homes. There's also leads to health problems such as hypertension, diabetes, obesity, and obesity is very common in kids. That's why people are people are actually trying to limit the amount of childhood obesity in the United States because the numbers are so high. But it's shown that the root of this, it does lie in food deserts. A lot of kids who are obese come from low-income communities that are food deserts. The cycle of food apartheid. So it starts with those farming subsidies and the land staying in white hands, which leads to the capitalistic system that chooses where food goes. So in terms of the farmers choosing which grocery stores they're going to send their food to, those grocery stores are also deciding which communities they're going to enter. Supermarkets want to be in communities that have high population. They want to go where people have money to spend. Low-income communities do not have a lot of money to spend. So often these supermarkets will not enter these communities because they're not looked at as desirable and high for profit. So this leaves low-income communities with lower quality food, and they end up with inhabitants who acquire many, many health issues. These health issues lead to being go to the doctor, these doctor prescribed medicine, and then it just leads to more revenue for a capitalistic system, and it never ends. So what is the solution to the impossible problem of food apartheid? Let's find out. Solutions to food deserts, these are a few. Some include urban gardens, bus-stop farmer markets, and community outreach. So urban gardens help with community strengthening. They also help with awareness and growing food from start to finish. So how does this food enter your home? What's its journey? Where is it coming from? How does it end up on your plate for you to consume? Basically, it encourages healthy dietary habits by just watching a seed be planted. When you have the community coming out to grow their own vegetables and growing their own food, they get a wider appreciation for it. They're able to compare and see like, hey, this tomato is more vibrant and red, it's more juicy as compared to what I'm being offered in this low quality grocery store, something that's like a pale pink, not as like the flavor isn't there and things like that. So it encourages healthy dietary habits. People get a more respect for food. And then we also have bus stop farmer markets. Bus stop farmer markets are the intention behind it is to put food where people already are. A lot of people in low-income communities do not have access to cars, so they're taking public transportation like buses. And there it is convenient for them to stock up on groceries because it's already on their way. They don't have to go out of their way to find somewhere else. They're being enlightened right where they are. Community outreach is big because a lot of people in low-income communities don't know about urban gardens. They don't know about bus-stop farmer markets. They don't know about these things. They don't know about these resources. They don't understand why they feel like they should be growing their food and things like that. So letting people know about these information in their community and why they are there. Let them know that they live it. A lot of people don't know that they live in food deserts. I didn't know that I lived in a food desert until like a year ago, right? I didn't know what a food desert was. It was a new term to me. I didn't know what food apartheid was. It's a new term to me. So this is why it's very important to educate the people around you, maybe even bring it up casually in conversation, like, hey, there's not a lot of food here. I've been educating people from Paraguay, my friends and things like, there's a reason why we have so much fast food. Yes, it's cool to like go to Popeyes or go to something after we hit the park or after we leave like one of the centers that are available to us, but there's a reason why we have so much fast food and not a lot of grocery supermarkets or not a lot of healthy food. Like even in Manhattan, you'll see like a Just Salad where they're selling salad. Food like that is still healthy. We don't have that. So that's why it's important to educate people on why and why it would be a good thing to go to these urban gardens or to pay attention to these bus stop farmer markets. We have some more questions, more interaction. Please comment in the chat or unmute yourself. Have you noticed any community gardens in your neighborhood? I know in Farak, I have one. They have like chickens. It's a very beautiful garden. It's pretty new. No. Okay. Magali, you can go ahead.
Hi. So here in Yonkers, there's a community garden in one of the less, I guess, wealthier areas of Yonkers, and I find it really interesting how it's in this specific area instead of somewhere where I guess you would genuinely consider a community garden to be, like in a much more wealthier or much more populated area. And it's just really amazing how they always produce a lot of fresh vegetables and all that for their citizens and like the people in the area.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I see Mike, you can go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I'm from Brownsville, and around like 2016, we had like a farm going on. Like people were coming in our neighborhoods, like planting like fresh farms and everything, and the people in my neighborhood didn't really take a liking to it because they felt like that was leading to gentrification in that area. So that farm is no longer there, but there was definitely steps at one point put in place to make that plan come in fruition, but not anymore.
Thank you for sharing that. So in terms of that, like where people thought it was like due to gentrification and things, this is another reason why education is so important, why outreach is so important. Let people know these things are there for us, right? I know a lot of people are actually scared of gentrification. That's a whole other topic, but also like hitting up your neighbor, like, hey, did you see the community garden? That's for us because the food in these grocery stores ain't too nice, you know. There are so many times where I've gone to the store to pick up some milk and it expires like in 2 days, and I didn't understand why, but now I know it's because of the system of food deserts and food apartheid. Another question: have you or anyone you know ever grown your own produce? For me personally, my grandmother always had us. We have gardens in front of our house, in our backyard. I currently am. I am big on gardening. That is so cool. That is something that I want to pick up. Like I've never like, we used to have like a little vineyard in our backyard. It was very small, but it was cool. And in front, my aunt, and my grandmother garden. That is my plan this spring, summer. That's nice. I think that's something I want to do in the future for real. Would you guys be interested in growing your own produce if you don't already? I see that Professor Floresville said that that's her plan for this spring, summer. Yes, we do herbs and small stuff in my yard. But the deer eat it all. I'm weak. That's so cool that you had deer close to you. I've always wanted to like be able to pull out my phone, go on Snapchat, and record a deer, rotten deer. Yes, I want to start gardening this spring as well. I grow fruits and vegetables. That is so cool. If you have any tips for me, please send them because I definitely want to be able to do that as well. What are some of your favorite veggies and fruits? LOL, no, deer are not that fun. They look fun. Oh, okay. What are my favorite veggies and fruits? I love broccoli. I like asparagus. I love roasted vegetables. Pineapples. Okay. I'm not a huge fan of pineapples except for like pina coladas, virgin, of course. Cantaloupe, honeydew, pineapple. Ooh, honeydew is good. The charm wears off after a while with the deer. Okay, I see. So then I'm grateful for the blessing I have of not having deers near to me. I'm allergic to most, but that does not stop me. I'm weak. Oh, mangoes. I love ripe mangoes. The seed used to be the favorite part when you were younger until you realized the seed just it don't hit the same no matter as you get older for me personally. Tomatoes, okay. Mangoes, kiwis. I used to love kiwis when I was younger as well. Broccoli, squash. These are all great. I'm happy that you guys like veggies and fruits. Honestly, I'm allergic to tree nuts and pineapple, grapefruit, apples, cutie oranges. I like tangerines. Those little cute. They're just cute, so they just make eating them more enjoyable. Zucchini, onions, mushrooms. I love mushrooms. Call me weird. I love mushrooms. Okay, great. Thank you guys for populating the chat. Yeah. So if these are some of your like favorite veggies and fruits, it might be a great idea to farm them, to grow them yourself, right? Because you could keep going to the store and buying them, or you could invest in like a little garden into a little plant where it's more accessible for you. Like I recently got my grandmother a chili plant. It's small, but it bears fruit. I mean, it bears the peppers and stuff, so she doesn't need to go to the store to get them. So it's a great investment. I recommend. So what is the ultimate goal of finding these solutions to food apartheid and everything that it encompasses under it? So eradicating food deserts is number one. Now, how can we eradicate food deserts? Food deserts are so vast. There are so many of them, especially in the United States. So you may be wondering, Jellissa, how do we do that? Well, I have an answer. Making food affordable and accessible, right? So if food is affordable, if it's accessible, if it's healthy, if it's good quality, then no one's going to be in a food desert because everybody will be eating right, which is all we really want. All we want to do is eat right. The result of this will be significantly lowered marriage health problems in low-income communities, and people don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. Food insecurity will go away because people know that they can afford the food that they need on their table. They can afford to feed themselves and their children and their households, and that's honestly all we really want. That's all we really want. A bonus, though, is helping fight childhood obesity, especially because it is rooted in these food deserts. Now, I know we said how we're going to make food affordable and accessible, that we need to promote the purchase of healthy food, but now it goes much deeper. How do we do this? Well, I'll tell you. Food sovereignty. So food sovereignty is a movement that's been growing among farmers, fishers, indigenous peoples, and landless workers. So a bunch of people who are kind of like rejected out of this food system. Remember, like food right now is a capitalistic thing. It's rooted in making money. It's in the hands of white farmers. There are a lot of people who are left out of this who, who actually are actually at the foundation of where this food comes from. It's promoting a grassroots food system that involves citizen input. So it's recognizing food as a need over a commodity, whereas the capitalist system looks at food as like, oh, if you have enough food, then you can have it. Whereas food sovereignty recognizes that food is a need and everybody needs food, especially something that starts off free and then is just harvested by people and sold when anyone can get it for free. But that's none of my business. It builds traditional knowledge and rejects technology that undermines or contaminates local food system. Food sovereignty is rooted in actually caring for the food, actually caring about how it's harvested, how it's raised. So no GMO, no pesticides, none of that. It's literally just farming it with love, farming it from start to finish, and farming it the right way, and helping people access food the right way. It optimizes the ecosystem. So, like, you may realize that some foods may not be in season, but they're still available. And that is because they're not optimizing their ecosystem. They're making food in a way where they know that they need to be able to grow this because they need to get money off of it. So finding a way to optimize the ecosystem, some things will be available some year round, others other year round, because everything will be at its max freshness, at its max potential. Food sovereignty respects the work of all food workers, like privatization of natural resources. So again, like, you're not gonna have a private company off of food that's free, that grows from the land that we live on, right? And it also reduces the distance between food producers and consumers. So a lot of the times this means that local food producers will be the person who controls like the flow of food in your neighborhood, who like sends the food to these grocery stores and things like that. That is food sovereignty. That's all under food sovereignty, and that is the movement that is growing and taking rise to combat food deserts. This is the root of how food deserts can be prevented. Now, some food for thought. Do you guys think that food sovereignty is feasible? Do you think it's attainable? Do you think it's something that could possibly be attained? Do you think it's something that is realistic and could happen? And why or why not? Feel free to unmute yourself. Feel free to comment in the chat. Yes, no. Feel free to unmute yourself and tell me why you think this way. Yes. Why? Why do you feel like it is something that is feasible? I think it is possible, but it has to be a coordinated effort. I definitely agree. I feel like everybody has to be on, well, most people have to be on the same page. I feel like even if it's in terms of eradicating a food desert rather than opposed to every single food desert, as long as the people in this one specific community are on the same page, like, yes, we want this to happen in our community, it can be made happen. Like in my community, how we have an urban garden, just like having those people who are growing that food, let them know, like, hey, you may be able to put this food on the shelf of this supermarket, and we're gonna keep the flow of food going in that way. I see you, Mike. Please unmute yourself and yeah, tell me, what do you think? Why or why not? Yes or no?
I'm not gonna lie, you pretty much just said what I was thinking. I think it's very much possible, just as long as communities are able to come together and agree on the vegetables and fruits that they want grown in their neighborhoods. And then, yeah, giving back to the community by allowing those resources to be then used in supermarkets and I don't know, like they can do. I know sometimes in Brownsville they do this thing where like a food truck will come around on like the weekends or every 2 weeks, and they'll just give out free groceries to the people in the neighborhood. So I guess if that was more mass produced in each neighborhood, that would be really good.
That's dope. Yes, I definitely agree. I feel like even with like growing your own food, and selling it, there will be some kind of revenue where you will have some kind of food left over that you would be able to possibly give away for free. Remember, food sovereignty is recognizing food as a need rather than a commodity. So say that you are like selling food, and food sovereignty is something that is existing in your neighborhood, and you have like these good quality foods on shelves in grocery stores and things like that, and you're selling them as well. And then you notice that there may be like a certain demographic of people in that community that still cannot afford it just because of their circumstances and things like that. But remember, you're growing your own food, you're getting seeds and things like that, you're harvesting things. So you would be able to have some portion of food that you would be able to give away for free, if possible, depending on the mindset of who's in control of that food and things like that. So yes. Is there anybody else? I'll give like a minute in case somebody's typing in the chat and things like that.
I'm going to chime in, Jellissa, just because we're a little over time, like if it was the real thing, you know, and the moderator could potentially start to wind things down. But so why don't you just move on to your last slide, and then we'll close out our rehearsal today.
Yes, so these are my references. And yeah, thank you. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, please just feel free to email me at jellissa.ft@gmail.com. I'd be glad to answer any other questions, maybe anything that I didn't go more in depth to. And yeah.
Well, I think that was amazing. And I think that you, number one, so one of the things that I will say is that I want to thank everybody for their participation. Go ahead, Xarielle.
I just wanted to say that you did an amazing job. I loved your energy, and it made the presentation enjoyable to watch.
Thank
Yes.
you. I
You took the words
appreciate
out of my
that.
mouth, which was, you were having fun. So I think, everybody else had fun and was very engaged with what you had to say. And I think that, overall, you were right within time. I mean, we just like the conversation is what took us over the 20 minutes that they say that everybody has. But you were really great about acknowledging people's comments in the chat, responding to people's questions and comments, when they turned on their microphones. So I think you did a really great job. I mean, are there any other like questions or feedback that anyone wants to share with Jellissa?
I see you, Professor Flores, though. Go ahead.
All right, hello everyone. Sorry if there's any noise. I'm at my mother's house over here. I just wanted to commend Jellissa. I feel like you did an amazing job on your presentation. This was something that I was discussing with my students, I feel like a semester or two ago when the Stop and Shop across the street closed from the school. If you attended during that time, you might remember. And I think they're converting it into a car dealership, if I'm not mistaken. So I was explaining to them what that impact would be, for the school and the students and the local residents in the area. So I really love that you did this subject. So very well done. And you had great energy, like everyone said. So keep it up.
Thank you. And I see Mike has a hand up, so.
Oh, I was just gonna say that you spoke really well and really clear. I was able to follow everything that you were saying as we progressed through the presentation, and you really taught me a lot. So, yeah, I think this is something that I would like to have a conversation with people in my community about. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I
I
think
have
that's a
one question.
perfect note for me to end the recording. So I'm going to hit stop on the recording.